Welcome, listeners, to another installment of the JFH podcast, where we dive into the Christian music industry as well as the entertainment industry at large, sharing conversations with artists you love, artists we think you'll love, and staff writers from JesusFreakHideout.com. I'm your host, Chase Tremaine, and on this 199th episode, I'm joined by staffer Evan Dickens as we interview the artist PEABOD. We don't have a sponsor for this episode, so I want to let you know or remind you that our official 2023 staff average and top albums and top songs list is published on the website now. So head over to JesusFreakHideout.com to check out not only our staff average top 10 albums, but also the individual staffer albums and songs list. This is a great chance to catch up on anything you might have missed or haven't heard of yet. If you enjoy what you hear on this episode, I hope you'll subscribe for more, with new episodes dropping every other Wednesday. And if you're a regular listener of the show, we'd love for you to write a review on your podcast app of choice or share us with a friend. Either of those things help us out a lot. Now, on to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, it's super happy to have you back. You actually puts you in a very small group of artists who've been back for a second episode of the JFH podcast.
Oh, awesome.
So
I love that.
Really happy to have you another time. I've got two dumb icebreaker questions to get us started.
I love it.
So dumb question number one, because this episode is going to be airing, publishing on December 20th, what are your rules for Christmas music each year?
Oh.
When do you allow yourself to listen? Do you have any like go-tos or first things?
Yes, I feel like I barely have rules. I'm like, I love Christmas music so much, but I'm kind of like I feel like I'm a conversion story in this way, because I used to be like no Christmas music until after Thanksgiving, and then I got married, and my wife loves Christmas music, and so the date started getting pushed back further and further. And then, Evan, you'll know this, being a Pacific Northwest guy, I also feel like we have had the gloomiest intros to winter the last few, like November has been rough the last 4 or 5 years. Yeah. And so I was like, you know what? Once Halloween's over, like, let's get some Christmas cheer in here, because it's basically dark at 2 p.m. and like maybe the sun hasn't set, but it's dark. It's anyways. So I'm all in on Christmas music starting November 1st, like hardcore.
All right.
Have you ever recorded any Christmas music?
I have one Christmas song out.
Never Ending Christmas.
Yep. Never Ending Christmas. And I've written one other Christmas song that like years and years ago that didn't get released. But I've been toying around with some ideas. I'd love to do some Christmas music, but there's always other songs to write. So, but it's in the back of my mind for sure.
That'd be fun. Evan, do you want to share your Christmas rules just for the sake of it?
I'm pretty firm on Thanksgiving as the cutoff. But
I respect it.
That slipped a little bit this year, and you know, it's a marriage-driven decision, as you alluded to.
Yes.
So, it also has to do with the fact that there's about 30 big plastic bins full of Christmas items in the shed in the back. So the Christmas decoration process and the Christmas music process kind of go hand in hand here. And that involves me spending hours of the day with a hand truck back and forth to the shed with stacks and stacks of Christmas boxes.
Yep, that's a good point, because the requirement for me when we start playing is not that small, not that big, because we live in an apartment. So it's like, Christmas decorations is just like put up the tree and put up a couple little things. But
20 years of marriage this year, it's been 20 years of decoration accumulations.
Yes.
So you'll get there soon.
Well, you could probably wait a little longer on the Christmas music then if you need to.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I'll let her know you said that.
Perfect. That's awesome. What about you, Chase? Do you have any rules around that?
So today's December 11th, and I just willingly listened to Christmas music for the first time, if that says anything. I think some years I just go entirely without Christmas music, and it's not even like a very intentional decision. It just doesn't become what I crave, but every now and then I do desire it. And it's really just, it's whether I want to on a given day or not.
Yep.
So
respect
for me,
that.
once the Christmas music starts, it's full on. Like I've got about 40 CDs on my laptop on my work computer. And I just kind of cycle through a shuffled playlist all day. I listen to the Radio U Christmas station quite a bit, just other random Pandora Christmas stations. But yeah, like once it starts, we have a process here at JFH. We got to finish up our year-end top 10 lists. I turned those in last week. Once that's done, it's Christmas music right now. Flipping the switch.
That's awesome.
So my second dumb question, which might need a moment of explanation from me, is I'm curious to hear, Mr. Peabod, whether you consider Play to be your first, your second, or your third album.
Oh, man.
And because when you probably intended Healthy Snacks to be a debut album, but as you got, signed to Centricity, it was promoted as a mixtape. So like it got filed under that designation, which is a common thing in hip hop. And then under them, you released the Growing Up EPs, Part 1 and Part 2, which then got combined together onto a Growing Up CD. And so I could really see an argument for Play to be first, second, or third. So I just want to hear from your perspective.
Oh man, I should have been prepared. I don't know that I have an answer for this, because I think I mean we probably talked about this 5 years ago when last time I was on the podcast, but Healthy Snacks was so like I called it a mixtape because that was just kind of SoundCloud culture was huge at that point, and everyone was releasing mixtapes, but it was very produced. Like a real mixtape is back in the day, you'd rap over other people's beats because you couldn't afford to buy or hire a producer, and then you distribute those things illegally because you didn't actually have the rights to it. So it's not like a true mixtape. So I'd say Healthy Snacks is my first album. We did think about, we were like, we could call this my debut album to get some buzz around it, but we were like, no one would be people would be like, no, it's not. What do you no one else would roll with it. So I'd say this is my second album, even though the Growing Up EPs definitely go together and we have sold them as one CD. They came out far enough apart that I don't feel like I wouldn't consider them they're two sides of the same coin, but not the same record, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense. We'll say it's my second album. We'll go with that.
Cool. It's a good compromise.
See, you don't have visibility to the constant chat arguments that Chase and I and others have about, is this an album? Is this an EP? Is this a mixtape? What is this? Is this album number 7 or EP number 2?
Right. Oh my gosh, I'm sure. Well, and then, you've got people who are releasing remix records or deluxe editions or double LPs, but it's not actually an LP. It's because it's never on vinyl. And so you're like, what is this? And there was that year too, a few years ago, when Drake released that album that was just he called it a playlist. You remember that? And it was 25 songs.
Yep. Yeah.
And I just was like, dude, that's a lot of music. Anyways, so you guys have a hard job, is what I'm saying. Must be hard to follow.
Thank you.
Yes.
Nobody's ever expressed that type of sympathy for us before. I appreciate that.
I feel it.
So, Peabod, I'm curious. Can I call you Isaac, by the way?
Yes, of course. Of course.
Okay. All right. Birth name is Isaac. Isaac means laughter. That's what you're after.
Yes.
I'm just curious if you could talk a little bit about your recent life, kind of what's been going on with you, how it's influenced the content of this album. You start off right away talking about being positive, being an optimist. Maybe just share a little bit, just kind of what life has been for you in the last couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. So professionally, I used to work with this awesome label called Centricity in Nashville. Love those people to death, but we stopped working together in the summer of 2022. Just business-wise, they're phenomenal, Christian music radio, powerhouse team. They've got Lauren Daigle and everybody, and that's just not necessarily the lane that I've ever felt called to. And so we we felt like it just made business sense to part ways at that time. But I still hang out with those guys when I see them and love them to death. But this was my first independent record. So that summer, I was starting to think about the next project. And I was like, you know what? I feel like I'm in this new season and I need to just kind of take any boundaries around what I'm making off. Like I'm not going to shoot to make any specific thing. I'm just going to roll with what songs come to me and pick the best ones of the bunch and release those as an album. And so that's where that idea Play kind of came in. That was kind of the surface level. And it turns out it's really expensive to be an independent artist. It was super nice to have a label paying for everything. And so yeah, Chase, you know how it is. It's, you get to like, oh man, I got to pay for mixes and masters and figure out artwork and marketing stuff. And there's a lot that goes into it. And so I think you alluded to kind of the first opening, one of the opening lines on the song Press Play says, is being an optimist opting to wait.
Being an optimist opting to not look at plot twists.
Not look at plot twists. I should know this because I wrote it, but it's like I listened to the mixes a few too many times and the words are jumbled in there. But yeah, so I think during that season, I've always been a pretty optimistic person. It's just kind of how I'm wired. But I think that I started to run up against things like the finances of being an independent artist, like, wow, this is really expensive. And then going to like, man, it's hard to like get your name out there and hard to do things on your own. And even with the team, it's just, there's so much saturation in the music market right now. And then like mentally, I had spent the last couple years doing counseling with a really awesome Christian counselor up here who I love to death. And I'm really grateful for that time and saw a lot of fruit from it. But it was also really, really hard work and had to confront a lot of things that, you can't just optimistically muscle your way through it. And so that's kind of where that question came from. And I promise this will all connect. So the idea of like, I'm an optimistic person, but I'm starting to feel like that trait that has always kind of carried me through obstacles, like find the silver lining, God's good all the time. I'm running up against some things that are tougher than what I've faced before. And I started leaning into these songs that I was writing, and I realized through this whole process that play is not just something that is like fun to do or like, refreshing, but is actually like a really important part of just being a human that is thriving and not just surviving. And my wife is a teacher, and she has done all this research on play and childhood development. And there are like some really serious correlations that like children who don't play like develop things slower or maybe develop problems later in life. And that still affects us as adults, even once we've grown up and we've matured and our brains are developed. As we stop playing, that can affect you. It's, if you're a workaholic, like it gets to you, or if you're, I don't know, there's so many obstacles, and play is one of the first things we can drop. What I'm trying to get to here is, in this album, as I worked on it, I just realized, like, as I was playing around and letting myself be free with the music that came to me and the lyrics that came to me, I found the Lord there, and he just kept meeting me. And I was realizing, oh my gosh, he's been doing this for me, like, as long as I've been writing songs, even in seasons where it felt like I was having a hard time meeting him in other places in my life. And so what started as a concept of like, yeah, I'm just going to not put any creative boundaries on what I'm doing, turned into like, oh, I really need this sacred place of play because God is meeting me here, because he created this experience for me to feel joy and to connect with him and to connect with other people, and all of those are good things. So yeah, I found in play kind of a way forward through some of the stuff that I was facing, and that became the album.
Yeah. So tell me if I'm off base here, because I don't want to put words in your mouth with this question in a way that you feel forced to agree with. But, in thinking about centricity, which I also agree, like, we're lovely people, and I had so much fun every time I got to go to their office and interview artists like you there. But I can see where the divide is between kind of what they're going for in the industry and where your lane is. And one of those things is the push just in CCM and Nashville in general towards collaboration and co-writing, to the extent where I think people who try to do everything themselves is kind of looked down upon. Like, oh, you shouldn't do that. You need to work with other people. We need to get you in writing rooms. And so, there are a handful of, co-writes and even some co-productions on the EPs you made with them. And growing up, part one especially, almost every song has like guest artists on it. So that puts different, timelines and things on a song. The kind of demands of like, oh, we've got this person in the room today. You need to finish writing with them, or if you've got them in the studio today, we need to finish, recording their part of the song, or whatever, those restrictions might be. Versus now being independent again and kind of being able to, as you say, kind of play with your songs as much as you want, take as much time on them as you need, kind of enjoy just letting the song seep for a while. So, like, is that kind of true to the experience and the kind of shift to being indie again?
Yeah, I think I really enjoyed a lot of the. I think it's just different. It's I got to work with a lot of cool artists that I was really excited to partner with while I was with Centricity, and a lot of there are a lot of songwriters I worked with where maybe we didn't even finish stuff, but we there's this producer in London named Jimmy James. He's produced some of the Social Club stuff and some of the Hillsong Young and Free stuff, and we made a couple songs that never got released, but I learned a lot from him just watching him work and getting to we just did our little Zoom writes. It was like midnight for him in London, and he's like, "Oh, I just put the baby down, so this works great for me." But so I'd say I got to meet a lot of cool people, but it definitely I love the production side of it and the songwriting side of it. So it's not necessarily something. I think collaboration for me is always just. It's just fun to see what other people bring to the table, and I'd love to do more of that. But just being out in Seattle, once I was independent, I was like, okay, one, I can't really afford to pay another producer right now, and two, I love it. I love producing, so I produced the whole record, except for Hey Mama. I co-produced that with Don Rivko because he's a super talented producer too. So part of it is just being out here. There's not the opportunity to get in rooms with people as much, and Centricity has all their connections and was always working those. But then part of it too was okay, I want to get this record out quick and I want to make progress quick, and the easiest way to do that is just to do it myself. So but I think selfishly too, it was really fun for me to get to just sit and create for I really just kind of blocked out 2 months and just started all these songs. And so anyways, I don't know if that's really answering your question. I think it's a double-edged sword, because it can, obviously, the more cooks in the kitchen, it can slow things down, but it can speed things up too. I'm confident as a producer, but I'm definitely not as fast as a lot of the Nashville guys out there. My buddy Sajin, who produced on Alive, I'll watch him in Ableton and he's just typing furiously, and then 2 minutes later there's a beat skeleton built out, and I'm like, dude, how did you do that? Shortcut king. Anyways, I'm kind of rambling now.
So I am blown away to hear that, other than you said Hey Mama was the collaboration. So you're responsible for 100% of the beats on this album. Other than that,
yep.
that is remarkable because I think this album sounds just fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
And especially the way that the songs really have a unique identity. Like you're not just going back to the exact same idea and slightly iterating on it. Just a really unique identity across the album. So my compliments to you as a producer.
Oh, thanks.
Have you explored like doing beats for other artists? Are you producing for others at some point?
Yeah, I that's actually something I'd really be interested in. I'm trying to figure out like the right lane to do that because it's I don't know. my brain goes, oh yeah, just DM a bunch of people and be like, yo, bro, you want to collab? But like, you know, I don't want to be that guy. So yeah. So there are a couple artists. I have a couple things in the works with some friends right now that I don't know if I'm allowed to share it because it's not my art. But I definitely love to make that more a part of my offerings because it's super fun. So I should say I did produce the whole thing. There were a couple contributions that I'd love to shout out real quick. My buddy Zach
Please.
Hendricks on Magic Hour. There's all these like 80s synths, and that all those textures. Like I had the song built out and the chord structures and everything, but I was like, dude, I need the right sounds, and so he jumped in with those and added a little bit of. He added a little top line on the bridge, and then my brother-in-law, Matt Herrera, played on Oranges. There's a little tasty guitar solo at the beginning. That's him. And he added a little bit of co-production on that one too. So like I produced those songs, but I had some very talented friends jump in and play instruments on those ones.
Did you play the guitar solo at the end of Magic Hour?
I did play that one. Yeah.
Really? That is great.
Thanks. I played that on my Epiphone Les Paul that I bought off my neighbor in 10th grade for $200 and it still works.
I actually had an Epiphone Les Paul in 10th grade also. Like I'm not even making that up, but I have I'm looking at it right now. That was my guitar for like 15 years was an Epiphone Les Paul.
I love it. Hey, they're solid guitars, man.
Straight up, I also have like an Epiphone that I bought from a neighbor in like 8th or 9th grade. That's so funny.
I love it. That's awesome.
So what have you been listening to? Is anything that you want to shout out that like influenced the sound of the album that's really influenced you?
I'm going to look at my 2020. I'm an Apple Music guy, so I didn't get the Spotify recap, but Apple's trying. So let's see. I listened to a lot of pop this year, which I'm sure you could hear on the record, but I listened to the Jonas Brothers record a ton. Really, anything that John Bellion worked on this year, I was like eating it up. He also did Tori Kelly's new EP, and I was very excited about that. I listened to. Do you guys know John Guerra?
Mm-hmm.
I listened to his new record a ton this year. Listened to the new King's Kaleidoscope record, the latest Colony House that came out kind of at the beginning of 2023, I think.
Yeah.
But then also like I don't know, some songs like from the Barbie movie and lots of pop stuff. Oh, a lot of the new KB record. I listened to that a lot. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through my
you're good.
my playlist here.
I've questions about influences.
Yes.
Are you a fan of a band called Saint Lucia?
Yes. Okay. Yes, and there are they have a sample pack on Splice, and there are a couple little St. Lucia toms on Magic Hour.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. That's literally exactly. I was like, these toms sound like they're pulled straight from a St. Lucia song. That is amazing.
They literally work. I was like,
wow.
I was literally like, oh, I need a tom fill here. And I was like, I wonder if they made these available to the public, and they did. So it was perfect.
Oh man. Yeah.
So good.
And then when you go off in the middle of deep cuts, how was that? Were you channeling Kendrick at all intentionally?
Dude, yeah, I always hesitate to like say someone like Kendrick, I think is the greatest rapper currently living, just talent wise. And so I always hesitate to like say he's an influence because I don't want anyone to be like, oh, you think you sound like, because I don't think I sound like him, but I'm very inspired by his talent. So, that song was one. Another person I got to shout out, my buddy Austin, who plays drums for me often, and he played live drums on Start a Band, by the way. He A&R'd this whole project for me. So I, made all these demos this time last year and was just texting him, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And he told me on Deep Cuts, the first time I did that kind of ranting section, he was like, you got to go way harder, man. Like, you're not hitting it hard enough. And so that's probably like the like loudest I've just yelled at the mic in this song. My voice is very tired after.
Are you looking forward to doing that one live?
Oh yeah, I definitely can't go that hard live. There would not be a rest of the concert.
Just do that one as the encore.
Yeah, exactly.
On the stage.
Exactly. Yep. Oh man.
Okay, so I got to sound cool here because I'm not a producer or musician like you guys, but I want to ask, at least because I was listening to the album before this, and one thing that jumped out at me that I hadn't really paid attention to is on the chorus of Better Than Nostalgia, there's this syncopated cymbal sound there. Is that a live cymbal or is that a sample?
That's a sample. Yeah, most of the drum sounds are samples just because, I made it in my extra bedroom in my house. But then the one place with live drums was on Start a Band, and we paid for some studio time in Jacksonville where my drummer lives, and he killed it.
Can you talk about that song briefly? Specifically, how did you end up hooking up with Aaron Gillespie? To be on that song.
Well, that one, speaking of cold DMs, was literally, I just was like, dude, I have this song and I think you'd be perfect for it. And I DM'd him and he was like, okay, bet, let's do it. So,
did you have a relationship with him previously, or this is literally a cold DM?
Literally. And the way it went to, like, he was top of my dream list because I listened to the Almost and Under Oath growing up, and just have always been so impressed with him as a performer and songwriter. So like, he of course was in my mind, but I was like, it's Aaron Gillespie. There's no way I'm going to get him on a record. So I actually reached out to a bunch of other people first and got no's, or Nashville no's, didn't hear anything back, and or like, hey, super cool song, but I'm on tour right now, or I'm working on my own record, I don't have time. So I'd been pitching it to people for months and months and months, and then was kind of going to move on to the next tier of like, obviously, like the dream scenarios, you have someone with a little bit of a name that can help the song. And so I was like, okay, we'll just look for someone with the right vibe, even if they're a new artist. Like, that would be cool too. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to send it to Aaron before I send it to this next round of people. And I heard back from him within like 8 hours or something like that. And he was like, yeah, man, let's do it. Let's figure it out. So wild.
That's amazing.
Just wild. Yeah. So I felt really like, I seriously, like, he's a hero of mine. So it was really cool to get him on the record.
My friend Casey attended the Emery and Almost tour this week and sent me videos of the Almost covering Under Oath in their current tour set, which I thought was so funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah. They had the screamer from Emery coming out to do Spencer's parts.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Because on that tour, isn't the band from Emery playing as Aaron's band too in the Almost?
Oh, I guess that definitely could be true. I didn't notice from the video. I'd have to go back and check.
I kind of think that the Emery band is doing a double set, and half of it is like the whole Southern Weather record.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Super cool.
So since we're talking about the indie artist thing, I'm curious if we could stay on that.
Yeah.
Is there any advice you want to give somebody who's in the position of like thinking whether they should try to push their music toward getting signed or whether they should stay a full independent artist?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the best thing I can say is you really have to, like, especially if you're a Christian artist, I think you really gotta like pray about it and know what's right for you. There's so much talk out there right now about about whether or not it's good to sign with a label. And the thing is, there are lots of labels out there that prey on independent artists and take advantage of them. That's totally a thing. I'm not like naming anyone specific, and I don't know anyone in Christian music. I can say that I feel very lucky for my time with Centricity. I learned a ton while I was with them. And I signed with them at a time when I really needed a team to say, hey, we think what you're doing is good. And I feel like for the first time in my life, I'm able to go like, I think this is good. I'm going to put it out. But it's nice sometimes to have someone who knows what they're talking about, kind of like co-sign and be like, no, we think this is good too. Like it's a huge confidence boost. And so, and just some of the connections I was able to make with them, like I met my manager because of them. I met my booking team because of them. So anyways, I guess what I'd say is it really depends on what you're trying to do and where you want to go. I will say for like more independent artists are breaking through now than maybe ever before because of things like social media and just even Spotify's algorithm is so different than it used to be. So yeah, I think there's no right answer is I guess what I would say. I think there are shady people out there and I think there are wonderful people out there. And I think most people will know in their gut if it's a good fit or not. So, but I will say having a team is crucial either way. Even if you're just doing it on your own and you don't really have any budget, just getting a couple buddies around you who can give you feedback and give you ideas. It's you can't do it by yourself. It's tough to just put music out there. And I don't mean to play the like, oh, being an artist is so hard. But I think when you're making art and putting it into the world, you got to have a little core group around you that has your back and is in your corner. So if that's a label, great. And if that's a group of buddies from, wherever you live, that's great too. Maybe you need both. Who knows? I don't know. That's my answer. That's my long rambling answer.
You mentioned, the Spotify algorithms and how those are so powerful for breaking people, or at least breaking songs. So one of the methods that a lot of artists do nowadays is the waterfall method, to release one single at a time to try to give each song its chance to kind of blow up and hit that algorithm. So I don't blame any artist for doing that, but I not to ask too pointed of a question, but I do think there's an irony to the lyrics of deep cuts. Say like, I have day ones who want to hear the deep cuts. Yeah. And to release that as one of 8 singles
yes.
for a 10-song album. So again, it sounds maybe meaner than it should be, because I think you did the smartest, most business savvy thing in the rollout. But I think we also do have like fans and even people on site who are just kind of curious about that decision for how to roll out an album.
Absolutely. Well, and I know, Evan, that was even in the review too. So I was prepared to play ball with this question.
I'm an old man. I mean, I'm 42, so back in my day, that's not how we released music.
Oh yeah, dude. Well, and even I don't think it's any listener's favorite experience. I don't think I don't think anyone's happy about it. But I think there's a necessity to it, just because there's so much noise right now. And so I think for me, like I was talking with a buddy of mine, and he was like, why don't you just do singles? Like, why do an album? And I was like, well, I basically did just do singles, and then I'm just calling it an album. I think for me, if I had my way, if I could like confidently say like, yeah, I can definitely tell that like this is still going to get in front of the most people, just dropping it all at once. Like I wouldn't even do singles. I'd just be like, here's the whole thing, listen to it all at once, because that's how it's designed to be. But unfortunately, like the name of the game right now is content and consistency. And so the Spotify thing is one half of the waterfall method, but I think the other part of it is like social media. Like it's hard to come up with enough stuff to talk about. It's weird to do self-promotion. And so if you've got new songs coming out regularly, you go like, okay, well, at least I have this exciting thing to talk about. And so anyways, I think like it's kind of, to me, I feel like it's a lesser of two evils situation where if my choices are drop this whole 10-song project that I worked on really, really hard for the better part of a year, and just kind of take my chances and hope that it gets in front of people, or go, hey, I'm going to give these songs the best chance that they have, and I'm going to release them one at a time, even though it makes the overall release date maybe not what I dreamed that it could be. I'm probably going to go with that option because it's better care for the art overall, even though it makes the release day of releasing an album a little anticlimactic. I think too, the other thing is really the only artists I see dropping the majority of the record at a time are big artists. Like, I remember when I was with the label and Lauren Daigle's, not her newest record, but the one with You Say on it, came out, and they had done like 2 singles and then dropped the whole thing. And it was so cool to watch and like really, really inspiring. But she's Lauren Daigle. She's like, she's sitting pretty in the top spot in Christian music and is way up there just in music in general. And for artists like me, like if you go into your Spotify for artist data, I have, let's say, I think I have like 30,000 followers on Spotify. Not all of those followers get served my music every single time I release something. And so if I'm releasing singles, there's a better chance that people who are already fans will hear it. If I release a whole album, I'm guaranteeing there's going to be a big chunk of my listeners who are going to miss it just because maybe they follow me on Spotify, but not Instagram, or vice versa. And like I said, it's just volume out there. So I think that it's just the waterfall thing. I would love for it to go away, and I would love to do something different for the next release. But until someone smarter than me comes up with a better option, I feel a little bit stuck there. So that's not a very like hopeful way to end that answer. But the album's out now, and so you don't have to worry about me drip feeding it anymore because it exists.
Well, I really appreciate the honesty. I'm curious about if there's any reason for the 2 particular songs that you chose to hold back, which I think you could easily argue are 2 of the best songs on the album. Press Play and Magic Hour, both just extremely energetic, extremely like enjoyable, pleasurable songs. Just kind of curious what sort of drove the decision to those to be the ones that kind of just dropped with the album.
For sure. For Press Play, we definitely had our sights on that one being like, even though the album's play and the songs press play, it's basically the title track. It's the thesis of the album. So we were like, okay, it makes sense for that to be the one that's kind of like on release day. That's the song that we're really featuring. And then in Magic Hour, truthfully, like that one became one of my favorites as I was working on it. But I was working up on that song until the last minute. It was not done until the album was like, we were like, hey, we need to send this to mix like in 2 days, and the bridge is not done yet. So that was the one thing that was like a super steep learning curve for me doing this independently, is like we like having to do all this on my own and finishing songs on time, trying to get them out as quick as possible, going like, I want to get this independent record out there quickly. We did it as quickly as possible. So I guess I should say that's another reason for the waterfall too, because the album was not even close to being done when I released Deep Cuts months and months ago. There was a lot of work that had to be done. So in a way, I gave it to people as quickly as it was available. And Magic Hour just simply wasn't done until the very end. So, but then there were a couple other things too, like with the 2 features on the record, like the idea for Start a Band existed like just as early as any of the other song ideas, but we didn't have the right feature, so we pushed that back until we found Aaron, and it worked out. And same with Dawn. We were talking about releasing Hey Mama earlier in the summer, but he got super sick and couldn't record his verse for like a month or something like that. Which, you know, those are just the kind of curveballs that happen when you're trying to make something and it involves your voice. So,
right.
Yeah. So that dictated just a lot of the schedule was necessity and like, what can we get done? When is it right? And those two happened to not be ready until the 11th hour.
Yeah, I will say, well, first off, I was going to ask, like, have you been sitting on a finished album or were you tinkering to the last minute? So answer that one.
Yeah.
But I mean, I want to compliment you. Obviously, you've read Evan's review of the album. I haven't heard my thoughts at all because they're too mean. No, but it's I think
typical
not
Chase. Nice guy, bad guy.
Yes. You know, I think this is especially impressive hearing that it was kind of mixed over the course of time and that, you know, you were finishing some of the songs months after releasing the first singles, that like none of the album sounds like inconsistently mixed or mastered. It all sounds of a piece. It all flows really nicely from track to track and sounds like polished. There's nothing on it that sounds rushed or messy or like there's
thank you,
you know, too much gain in these vocals or weird frequencies in the background. Like all of it is like super clean cut, which is one of the things that I, you know, was really impressed with from Healthy Snacks back in the day. Just how nothing about it sounded like it was someone self-producing, you know, their own stuff in their bedroom. And so the cleanness and care into your tracks is something that comes across really, really well. But I think one of the other like high level observations I think most people would have about Play is that there's a definite move away from rapping every song. And you know, definitely it's like a 2/3 to 3/4 singing versus rapping, which I think is going to be disappointing to some people. But I think the counter to that is that I really think you like pushed yourself into new melodic territory on this album and are writing way more interesting melodies here than you ever have before.
Thank you. So. I appreciate that note. That was another thing I came prepared to talk about before I dig into
you having a printed out copy of my review just marked out in like red Sharpie, like thanks. Okay, we're gonna talk about this.
No. It was seriously like such a kind and encouraging review. But those are the two moments that I was like, okay, I can fill in some backstory on these where it's like
the thing is, and again, I want to clarify this element of my review. I think you're such a talented rapper, and that's so evident in the in what you do in like the first 4 songs of the album. That was the part of the second half of the album where I was like, oh, he's not really rapping anymore. This is kind of an interesting. So yeah, please talk about that.
Yeah, no. I really appreciate that. I felt nothing but the love from it. Truly. I will just say, Chase, to your note about like the cleanness of the record, I got to shout out my buddy Biz and his company. It's called Get MXD, which any indie artists out there, I'm not getting paid to do this or anything, but like they are truly like the most affordable, like high quality option for like Biz has mixed all of like Lecrae's stuff. He just did David Kushner, if you know him from TikTok, his single Daylight that blew up and was super, super viral. Biz mixed that. He's the best of the best. And so he's made this service that's like basically making his quality available at a much cheaper price. So he's worked on my stuff since the Backpack EP and has become a really good friend. So I gotta give credit where credit's due, because the record would not sound nearly what it does if it wasn't for Biz. So anyways, but yeah, as far as not rapping as much, I think there's two sides to this. One is, like I was talking about earlier, I went into this process going, I'm not going to put any rules on this. I didn't quite pull an Andre 3000 and just go, I'm going to make a flute album when everyone is expecting.
That's next,
like there is some rap on there. There is some
that would
rap
be
on
quite
there.
a twist, Isaac. I don't know what we do about that one.
I don't know that I'm talented enough to make a whole flute album, because he like really plays the flute, man. I don't know if you listened, but it's not bad. Like he's really he's really playing it. But I think like I went into this record going like, I'm such a fan of so many different genres, and my tastes change a lot. Like when I made Healthy Snacks and Backpack EP and a lot of the growing up stuff, I was listening to a lot of hip hop, and quite frankly, that's just not what I've been listening to as much this year. I mean, even as I was scrolling through, like I still have all my favorite rappers. I still pay attention when people I love are dropping stuff, but there's so much good, cool pop music coming out right now that I'm really excited about. And then also things like Start a Band. Like I grew up playing alternative rock and wanted to be in like a like hardcore band. And so like I have all these different factions of like that make my taste in music, and it's kind of eclectic and weird. Like sometimes I'll walk out of like a record store and the dude will be like, I don't think I've seen someone buy these two together. It'll be like John Mayer's Born and Raised and then some like weird like hyper pop record or something like that, and he's like, these don't go together, and I'm like, but I like both of them. So anyways, all that to say, I went into this record just being like, I don't want to just make like a hip hop record. I want to just like make whatever I feel like making. And so it kind of ended up being a little all over the place. That said, I feel like going forward creatively, like I love hip hop enough that I think there's always going to be an element of it in what I do. It's really kind of how I learned to produce. And I think that there's pieces of it, whether it's samples or rapping or whatever, I'm always going to pull from that. And sometimes it'll be like, yeah, this is a hip hop song. But there's just too much other exciting stuff going on in music. And so sometimes I got to play guitar solo, man. Sometimes I got to do a little sad boy piano ballad. And it just, I don't know. So I think music is an exciting time right now. And I imagine you're probably right. There are probably people who listen to the record who are hoping for more hip hop. But I also feel like there are probably more people who are being more excited about more genres now. I feel like when I was in high school, it was like, you're a hip hop kid, or you're like an emo kid, or an alt kid, or I don't know. You had your different groups of like, we listen to this kind of music. But I feel like a lot of people are listening to everything now, and pop music has elements of hip hop for sure. It has elements of singer songwriter, and now there's this cool like rock resurgence that's happening.
Yeah,
and which I'm very excited about. And so this record for me was just like, it was fun to be kind of just get to have a sampler for myself of like, I'm going to dive into 80s and 90s synth stuff with my buddy Zach. I'm going to dive into like, more acoustic singer-songwriter stuff with You Always Find Me. And then I'm going to rap when I want to rap. And so, anyways, I guess my reasoning is just like, I just wanted to make other stuff. So I'll keep rapping for sure, but who knows, the next song might be something very different.
So I want to ask you, I guess, the stereotypical question. We've talked about a lot of different songs on the album. If I just ask you, what's your favorite song on the album, or what's the most significant song to you on Press Play, or on Play, excuse me?
I mean, I definitely am like, I have like recency bias, or like whatever I finished most recently, I'm like, oh, this is my favorite because I just, it's like a new baby or whatever. I mean, maybe you don't do. I'm not a dad, so I don't know. Maybe you don't go. Now this child is my favorite. That's. but I was really, really thrilled with how Magic Hour turned out, and I think because that wasn't, I mean, I wasn't putting parameters on what I was doing, but because that one wasn't a single, I really just felt freedom to be like, yeah, we're gonna make it more than 4 minutes, and I'm gonna throw a guitar solo in and like have it be kind of a maximalist experiment. So that one was fun just because it was so. I really felt a lot of freedom with that one. Meaning wise, though, I think You Always Find Me and Lifetime Supply stand out as being significant. You Always Find Me. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but I think that realizing that play and songwriting had been a place that the Lord has met me for years. Even, I have some church hurt in my story. And so even when there were seasons when like picking up my Bible felt hard because I felt like I was doing it wrong, or praying felt like I was saying the wrong thing because I had some negative voices in my life that were not helping me along that path. I was writing songs in those seasons, and I really felt like the Lord met me there and connected with me there. And so You Always Find Me it's really about anxiety and church hurt being kind of the two things that have made me feel the furthest away from God, and how he keeps coming back and finding new creative ways to go like, I know where you are, even if you are confused and are not sure. So that one's significant to me because it is a good reminder for myself that like I'll probably feel that way again, and he'll be there and he'll find me there too. And then Lifetime Supply is significant for me in a different way. So I've mentioned a couple times I turned 30 this year, and that was kind of fun and weird for me to wrap my brain around, because there's such in music, there's such an emphasis on youth, which is cool. Like, young people have a lot of really awesome creative ideas. That's great. But obviously, like, we don't see a whole lot of, like the Chris Stapletons of the world who have their debut record at 37. That doesn't happen very often. And so it's really easy. I think also, like, my generation can feel like I need to have it all figured out by the time I turn 30. And if I don't, then I'm like not a functioning adult or whatever. And so it's easy as a musician turning 30 to feel like, well, I haven't made it yet, quote unquote. I haven't had my break yet. Like, so what does this mean? And I just have done a lot of, like, in therapy and also just in conversations with people, just work on going like, oh man, like, yes, we totally don't know how many days we're given, but like, there's a lot to look forward to. Like, there's a lot in front of us. And man, what a gift it is that we get time here. And so, like, one example of that, my dad, who's a full-time pastor, has been pastoring for 20 years. He just released like 3 different books within the last couple years. 2 of them are novels in this like middle grade children's series. They're incredible.
That's so cool.
And he just launched into this, never wrote books before. And so he has 2 books in that series and then a pastoral care book. And I was like, dude, like, he's, I'm 30, he's my dad, and he's entering into this new thing that he's never done before, just fearlessly and putting his creativity out there in the world for a completely new season of his life. And I just like, that is so beautiful, because he's not going like, well, I'm too old to do this, or like, I missed my chance. He's going like, I have this idea, I'm going to throw it out there. And I think that's really beautiful. And I think it reflects the heart of God, not giving up on us and knowing the plans he has for us. And so, yeah, those two both hold some meaning for me, for sure.
Yeah, I'll just tell you, Lifetime Supply is one of the most impactful songs I heard this year. I have it in the top 5 of my songs of 2023 list. That'll be on the site. I think that was maybe the moment this year, and I encourage every listener to listen to the song if you haven't had a chance to. I think it was maybe the moment where actually felt God speak the most to me through a song this year, because especially the line, "Don't give 1 second of joy away." There was just something extremely like emotional about like how much joy and happiness are you allowing to leak out of your life when you've got what you've got, and you need to, make the most of it. Laugh till it aches.
Yeah.
So it's a fantastic song. I'm glad you mentioned that one.
Thank you. That really means a lot to me. Seriously. Thank you.
Yeah, my favorite on the album is a toss-up between Lifetime Supply and Better Than Nostalgia. And even
Awesome.
that, it's like, I think I know that Lifetime Supply is the best, but Better Than Nostalgia has just been like my jam all year long.
Oh, thanks, man.
Can't stop.
I appreciate that. Oh, that's awesome. That one, I just got to give a little shout out to my buddy Austin, because the lyric originally on the chorus was just like, "Your love is better than nostalgia." And he was like, you can't tell them what's better. You got to ask a question. That makes it so much more profound. And I was like, oh my goodness, you're like, dude, his A&R brain is like crazy. So Austin made that song what it is. Shout out Austin.
I feel like I'm the opposite, where like sometimes I'll look at lyrics and like every single line is just a question. It's like this song is just nonstop questions. I never say anything. I just ask things.
I've been there too, brother. I get that.
So can you talk about what's next? What's 2024 going to hold? And I guess specifically, I really hope for the chance to see you live. I'm in the Northwest too, so hopefully I won't have to go too far. But are there some live shows planned for 2024?
Yes, we've got some live shows in the works. Nothing that I can announce quite yet, but hoping to get a lot more dates on the calendar for 2024. Really excited to play the album live, and Austin will be at some of those shows drumming his heart out. And so I'm really excited about that. I'm excited to get back in the studio eventually too. I love writing, and so I don't know what's next there, but I definitely am planning on getting some more time in the studio soon. And then it's just going to be if people on here follow me on Instagram, just buckle up, because I'm going to be bugging you about the album all year long, because it's finally out, and that's doing my job. So man, I'm excited that it's finally out in the world. It's crazy to work on something for like a whole year and then have it be done and finished. And lots of shows and lots of content.
So where do we follow you on social? What's your Instagram handle?
Everything is at PEABOD Raps. But I guess, now that only a third of the album is rap, maybe I got to change that.
PEABOD Raps ... occasionally.
Question mark?
PEABOD solos. PEABOD Raps turn into a question.
Yes.
Don't just say
PEABOD
it.
Raps and has one guitar solo. That's so funny.
Is there anything else that you want to like share about the album, or any specific song that you'd like to take this opportunity to talk about?
I think, sorry, I'm putting it together as I go. I think Play, in a lot of ways, is kind of a very similar idea to what I was talking about on Healthy Snacks. This idea of joy. But I think that, the older you get, you experience more hardship, and you have more friends who have experienced hardship. And so this album is kind of just reaffirming. There's hair on my mic. That'll be cool for
happens to me all the time, but it's a little more obvious where it comes from.
Does not happen to me. I cannot grow facial hair for nothing.
Yeah, maybe that was a mustache hair. Gross. Well, cool. I'm just interrupting myself with no, I think though that Healthy Snacks I wrote when I was 23, and obviously you can know stuff at that age, but I've just lived a lot more life since then. And so I think if people take anything away from the record, I would just hope that it's an encouragement, not that you're supposed to feel happy all the time, but just that the God we serve, like our joy is important to him, and it's so important that it's not based in anything that happens to us on earth. Like, our joy is important to him, and that's part of why we find it in Jesus, because that's the only source of joy that can't be diminished regardless of what we're going through. So, I'm not going to say like life is easy right now. There's so much craziness going on around the world and in all of our lives, I'm sure. But I think that my hope is that this album would be like a little safe place for people to climb up to. Like the album artwork that my buddy Kevin designed so beautifully is a treehouse, and the idea was, kids have these little pockets of safety that they create that they can climb into for an hour or two at a time and just play. And so if this album can be that kind of little safe place for someone to just kind of escape and play and know that God loves them, that would be super cool for me to hear. So yeah.
Man, that's beautiful.
Thanks.
Fantastic.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
besides like
play exclamation mark.
Yes. Thank you. Sorry. As you're like shouting out my album, I'm like, there's still hair on my mic. So professional.
I was more just laughing at like the moment of all three of us saying distinct things, like unrelated things at the same time. Be like, this is gonna be fun to edit.
It sounds so good.
Make sure like the entire conversation overlaps. That just it's your answer is already playing underneath Evan asking it.
Yes.
Make it a real avant-garde podcast episode.
Just chop the whole interview up into like even segments and line them all up on different tracks so they're all playing, and you listen to the whole interview, but just in a more efficient amount of time. I think that'd be really cool.
My favorite podcast, The Weekly Planet, just hit their 500 episode. And some random fan like just played like all 500 episodes on top of each other, and it's just the stupidest like noise you've ever heard. But they played it on air.
So funny,
like a torture device. That sounds terrifying.
Oh my gosh!
But
that's amazing.
Anywho, thanks for your time. It was super great to see you again, and it's also just awesome to have another album out from you. Like
appreciate it.
My roommates that I was living with when Healthy Snacks came out became big fans of Healthy Snacks. And so getting to text them on December 1st, being like, new PEABOD album.
Oh, that's awesome.
Get a response. He's back.
Yes.
So
I'll just say thank you for making joy and optimism like meaningful and cool in 2023. I shared with you that my teenage son is really into the album, and it's nice. Teenagers listen to some dark music, and so bringing some light and some important messages about joy it's been a great thing. So thank you for the album, and good luck with everything, and hopefully have a chance to see you live in the coming year.
Yeah. Oh, I would love that. Well, thank you both for having me and for the encouragement. Seriously, it's filled me up today, so I appreciate you both.
The JFH podcast is hosted and produced by me, Chase Tremaine, and executive produced by John DiBiase and Christopher Smith. To meet the people behind the show, discuss the episodes, ask questions, and engage in conversations with other listeners, join the JFH podcast group on Facebook. We hope you'll check out PEABOD's album, Play, and other albums featured in our staff top 10 lists for 2023, and we will be back in 2024 with our 200th episode. Thank you for listening.